Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Or if you're new here, hi, my name is Katie Wismer. I'm an author. I write fantasy and romance. My 12th book is called Tell Me It's Wrong and it releases on April 14th. All of my links are down below. Today we're going to talk about marketing. I have no idea what I'm going to title this at this point. A crash course, a masterclass, I don't know. I've been publishing for 5 years now. I feel like I've really honed in on what works for me marketing wise, but even then I will still have these hiccups or book releases that just do not perform the way that I would love to see. And that happened to me with my most recent release, which came out in September for Tell Me It's Right. That first month or two after it came out, I was not loving the results that I was seeing, decided something needed to change, tried something new, and things have just really taken off from there. So I'm gonna take you through exactly what I did, how you can do it too, and my recommendations to give you an understanding of how big of a difference doing this made. Here's a screenshot from Amazon for the royalties that I saw from this book, just from KDP. So this isn't including signed copies that I do through myself or through audiobooks, Ingram Spark, anything like that. But for that first month, a little bit over, they're not even $700 for just this one book. And then if we jump to the last 90 or so days, we've gotten that up to almost $13,000 again, just from this one book. And this thing that I'm going to teach you how to do is the only thing that I'm doing differently. I'm not trying to get your money. There's no course, there's no anything. This is free. You can do it yourself. And if I can do it, anyone can do it. And I'm going to show you exactly how. If you don't like social media, suck it up, because that's what I'm going to teach you how to do. We're talking TikTok, but you don't have to put your face in it. This is gonna be really easy, I promise. And literally, it starts to work right away. To break those graphs down even more, if you want a little more as a case study for Tell Me It's Right, that first month or so after it came out, it was averaging $18.18 per day. Currently, I'm averaging $142.81 per day from this one book. Okay, so before we get into it, I am gonna give you one little caveat. The purpose of marketing your books on TikTok or anywhere else is to get them to your Amazon page or Barnes & Noble page, wherever. That is only one step in the process of convincing someone to buy your book, is getting them to the page. For this to be as effective as possible, you need to make sure that that page that you are directing them to is as perfect as possible. Why spend all of the effort in getting them there if what they're going to see when they're there isn't going to sell them on the book and they're just going to click away? So make sure your cover, your blurb, all of that is up to par. If you haven't yet done research to make sure that you are fitting in within your genre and you're hitting the expectations, it's never too late. You can always change your cover, you can always change your blurb. Okay, so let's get into it. TikTok accounts. If you're new to my channel, I have 7. I have 8 things on this list. Tip number 1, have more than one account. And I am talking specifically burner accounts. These are not accounts under your name. It does not have your face attached to it, your name attached to it, nothing. You can do those too. I have 2 of those as well. I have author Katie Wismer and Katie Wismer Books, and then I have 5 that I personally don't share on here or anything because I want to keep the algorithm pure. Like, I don't want to be directing people to those accounts. I want the people to find them naturally. What is the purpose of having all of these different accounts? And by the way, I have 7 because I have 12 books to market. If you only have one book, like, you can still be doing this with your first book. You are not gonna need that many accounts. You can do that if you want to. You can have as many as you want to. The volume of accounts, Matt, is because of how many books I have, and I need to be able to post about 12 different books. Not actually 12, I market maybe 4. I would recommend making at least 2 to start. And here's why. TikTok is really a lottery, a volume game. You want to be posting as many videos as you can that's sustainable to you. Don't burn yourself out. And the way that TikTok's algorithm works, if you're posting too many times on one account, that's not going to work well for you either. If you try this, you're going to start seeing either you're posting the video and it just gets stuck at 0 views, it doesn't start pushing it at all, or all of the videos that you're posting are getting lower views, because it's gonna think you're spamming. It's gonna start to suppress your videos, potentially shadow ban you, and that's when you get stuck in the 2-digit numbers for views land. So to be able to post a ton of videos in one day, the way you wanna do that is having lots of accounts that you can spread that out among, instead of having one account where you post 7 times a day, 7 accounts, post once a day on each. Then all 7 videos can reach their full potential, if that makes sense. If you're not seeing results right away when you start this, stay consistent. It builds over time. For one thing, I feel like the longer you're doing this, the longer you've been consistent, the more TikTok trusts you. So when I first start a new account, I can expect the videos to do 1,000 views, maybe under 1,000 views, maybe a couple thousand. None really shoot off. After I've been doing it consistently for a month or 2, now every single video that I'm posting is getting 5,000 views, 7,000 views, 8,000 views. It will build over time, and it's not because the content's any different. It's just TikTok needs to see your content consistently perform well to realize that like, oh, you're posting content worth pushing, and then it will start doing that for you more consistently. Also, the way that it builds over time is videos from the past can start making a difference out of nowhere. Literally just last week I had a video that I had posted like over a month ago, and it got stuck at like 60,000 views, which is still good. And then all of a sudden it started shooting off again, and now it's at like 130,000 views a month later. So those videos in your backlog that you posted months ago, they can still be bringing in sales. I get notifications of likes and new comments and stuff on videos from months ago like every single day. Now, what do these videos look like? What is the actual content that you're making? These are static image slideshows with text on them. That's it. I'll put an example here. So you have an image of like a girl or a guy or a couple or a landscape or something. You describe a scenario. This is what I'm gonna be referring to as your hook for the rest of the video. In 1, 2, maybe 3 slides. Some people will do more. Sometimes some of my hooks have like 4 slides. Some people recommend that you do a ton. I personally don't, because even as like a viewer, it starts to get kind of tedious. Shorten it. 2 to 3 is usually my sweet spot. And sometimes that's it. It's just the hook and the pictures. And sometimes it's the hook and the pictures that's leading up to you then showing some kind of passage or quote from your book. The way that I create these is I go into the Kindle app myself, highlight them in some different colors or something, screenshot it, and then go to Canva just to format it so it's the right size. Okay, I have a lot of things that I want to cover, so to give this a little bit more organization, I will also leave timestamps down below if you need to jump around. The topics that we're going to include on how to make these videos: 1, where to get the pictures you're going to use in the first place; 2, how are you going to come up with the hooks that you're going to use; 3, captions, hashtags; 4, the sound that you use on the video; 5, when to post, how many; and then 6, general best practices, some things that I have learned over, I've posted thousands of these at this point, just some things that I've learned through trial and error, some things to look out for. Number 1, where to find photos. You will see a lot of people posting these videos, some who are readers, some who are authors. You would be surprised there are more authors out there who have these burner accounts than you know. So some good places that you can find these. Dupe is the best for me. These are Pinterest-y looking pictures that you're allowed to use. Unsplash is another decent one. Pexels, I have found some good ones there as well. I recommend just setting aside some time, searching through and saving a ton, and then just like cycling through them, and every once in a while go and search and add some new ones. That way you're not having to go and look for pictures every single time. Also, the image that you find initially might not be perfect, but you can make it look more Pinteresty with a few quick edits. I'd recommend just lowering the brightness on it, maybe making it black and white, adding some like fade graininess to it just to make it look a little more Pinteresty. Throw a filter on it if you want to. Some good like keywords to use to search for these images to begin with. It really depends on what genre you're marketing, and I would try to match the images as much as possible to whatever hook you're going to be using. For example, I have one book that's about a pop star and a bodyguard. So those images, I used like images that looks like a singer and a guy in like a suit. I don't use those images when I'm talking about my small town romance. They don't fit. Or when I'm talking about my vampire books, I don't use those ones. So I would recommend like specifically looking for things that match the vibe of your book. Honestly, even just searching for like girl, guy, woman, man, blurry, dark, people, especially on Dupe, you'll get some good ones with this. Unsplash, you can find good pictures on there. Same with Pexels. You might have to get creative with your searches. And if you're looking through and everything that is first coming up, you're like, wow, there are no good ones. There are, you have to dig. That's why I recommend setting aside some time, saving all the good ones to a folder once you find them. But a lot of my images that I use are from those sites. They just took a little bit of digging to find the good ones. Next, and potentially what is the most important, is what is a hook and how are you gonna come up with it? How are you gonna pull this content out of your books? I recommend coming up with at least 5 hooks per book that you want to be marketing, and then just cycle through them. When I say I post like probably at least 10 videos a day, that might sound like a ton of content to constantly have to be coming up with. I have 5 hooks per book and I cycle through them. I sometimes will think of a new one and I'll add it into the mix. I'm basically posting the same content a million times. What to use as a hook? You don't necessarily want to just be like regurgitating your blurb and telling people what the book is about. You can do some like that. I recommend coming up with like a ton of different hooks and just testing them and seeing which ones start to get more responses, and then just refining and kind of sticking to those hooks that are more successful. You want to evoke some kind of emotion in the viewer that's going to make them want to read the book. It's going to make them feel a connection to your character. You want something relatable. You want to make them feel sympathetic for your character. You want them to relate to your character. Some good emotions to tap into, or like something unfair, something unjust is happening to this character and the viewer's on their side. Something that embarrasses the character, something that's heartbreaking, or something that kind of hints at elements of your book without saying them outright. If you can hint at like some tropes in your book without actually saying that's what it is, does that make sense? Let me give you an example. For my vampire series, one of my most successful hooks for this book, I posted at least on one of my accounts every day. A different version of this every day. I'll put up one of them on the screen so you can see the images. A witch has to get paired with a vampire to complete her training at the academy. Ends up partnered with the vampire prince who never participates in the final trials. He's been exiled for years and no one knows where he's been or why he's back. This one converts to sales like nothing else with this book. Why? To be honest, I don't really know. I feel like I've come up with better hooks that to me seemed better that didn't work as well. This one, they eat it up. Let's dig into why. See, this one I didn't even have to pull a quote or anything from the book. This one's easy to make daily. So the first one, we have the setup. Who's my character? She's a witch. She's at some kind of academy. We're establishing my character. You're establishing the genre here. Here's the scenario of the book. Slide 2 adds a little bit of intrigue. She's paired with someone who she's not supposed to be. This is something unusual in this world, kind of like the inciting incident in a book. Slide 3, a little more about the love interest character that adds a little more intrigue, mystery. It also kind of hints at some of the tropes in this book. Forced proximity, enemies to lovers. It hints that there's mystery in the book. There's clearly going to be like a strained relationship between these two, distrust between these two. I don't have to outwardly say any of that. It's all implied. It piques people's interest. Another example, super short. This is just 2 slides and only one of them is text. The other one is a quote. This is the only one about my vampire series that has ever gone viral. For me, it was like 100,000 views on one of my burner accounts. Her kidnappers drop her bloody and nearly unconscious at her enemy's door. Slide to a little excerpt from that scene. And mainly I just highlight some things in there to kind of break up the text, draw people's eyes to specific things I want them to see. So this shows us honestly kind of the tone of the book, that it's dark, it's bloody. Again, enemies to lovers. We get more tropes like the who did this to you moment. And I also find, honestly, more often than not, when I do these ones that include more than just the hooks, an actual example of my writing, this converts really well into sales because it lets people see if this is something that they would like. That is a longer example, like a full scene. I have shorter ones too that I use. For example, for my pop star bodyguard one, when she thinks her new bodyguard hates her, but this is his POV, and you can see this is really just a short little one. Again, this tells us everything you need to know. This is a bodyguard romance, enemies to lovers, and then give them a tiny little sample of my writing, and it also kind of gives them a feel for my character. This is another one that works really, really well for the small town romance one, which was supposed to be the case study. I should have just kept giving you examples of this one. But POV, her date left her stranded on the side of the road in the middle of the night, and the person who comes running is her brother's best friend. Cut to that scene. So those are some examples. You can do just quick little hooks that don't include the quotes. I would do a mix of both and just kind of see what works. I think giving people a sample of your writing is helpful. I wouldn't worry too much about spoiling people or like spoiling major moments in the books, especially if it's like, it's a romance, people know how it ends anyway. If you're really struggling to get started, maybe make a list of any tropes that you know in your book and then try to narrow it down into what scenes do you actually get to see those tropes play out, those moments that the readers are picking up your book for. We want an emotionally charged moment, basically, whether it's between the character or their love interest, something that's really gonna play a big part in this character's arc. Give the viewer something to emotionally connect with your character about. In 100 words or less, honestly 50 words or less. And like I said, I would just come up with a ton of hooks, test them out, and then narrow down which ones seem to be working the best. I have put out a lot of hooks that I've just never used again because they didn't seem to work. But also, don't only try it once or twice and be like, oh, this doesn't work. Keep it in your rotation for a while. It might take some time to take off because there's a lot of other factors that go into whether or not a video does well, which I'll get into in a second. So just because 1 or 2 videos don't perform, I wouldn't assume it's the hook that's not working. It could have been the sound that you used, it could have been the images that you used, it could have been the hashtags, it could have been the time of day, it could have been because you've been posting too much on that one account and TikTok is suppressing you. You're gonna have to experiment with all of the different variables. We need a little bit of a scientific method here. I'll have my accounts linked down below too if you just want to like scroll through and see some that I've used in the past. I'm not gonna link my burner accounts, but although the images and stuff and the sounds might be different, though I use the same hooks across all of my accounts for the most part. So next, captions and hashtags. I have experimented with this a lot. I have never found like one thing to be like, oh, definitely do this. I have done captions where I have stuffed them with keywords and I've like written all this kind of stuff out. I've niched down my hashtags to try and get the ones that are most relevant, but they're not too big. I've tried a lot of hashtags, fewer hashtags. I'm only including this on this list to tell you not to stress about it. Experiment, try it all. There is not a right or wrong way to do it. With that said, these days, honestly, I will just put like what the book is in the caption so people know what the name of the book is, and I'll do like 3 hashtags. I do feel like my videos that have done better, the ones that have gone viral, have had only a couple of hashtags, so I'm kind of leaning towards telling you to not use a ton, but it's also like no rhyme or reason. Sometimes I'll do like really niched down hashtags like brother's best friend trope, and sometimes I'll just do book talk. And there's not one that seems to work better than the others. If there's any advice for this, I would mix it up. I don't use the same hashtags in every single video that you post. Try and use different ones, cycle through them, use different combinations, try and come up with different ones. You can use your genre, tropes in the book, and then just like community-based ones like readers of TikTok, romance readers, fantasy readers, book talk recs, book recommendations, and then like dark fantasy romance series, stuff like that. Now, the sound that you use on your video. This is arguably the most important part in my opinion, because as someone who uses the same hooks, uses the same images a lot, has posted a variation of the same video 100 times, it really seems to be being able to find a good sound is what takes off with the video. So what constitutes a good sound? Don't necessarily go to top viral sounds, top sounds in the US or whatever, and just pick whatever's popular or whatever's trending. That's not going to do it. You need what's popular in the kind of video that you're making. You need what's working in your genre in book talk. So you need to follow other accounts. Specifically, I would try and find accounts that do this kind of content, make slideshows like this, and find sounds that are working well for them if they write the same genre as you. So it is a little more particular. It can be harder to find these sounds. It's disappointing too, because sometimes I'll make a video and I'll use a sound that's like so perfect for the vibe of the scene and for the book, but the sound's not really popular on TikTok, so the video will just completely flop. You need to find the sounds that are already doing well in the community, and it changes all the time. But also, once you find one that works, don't be afraid to use the same sound on every single video until that sound's not working anymore. If you scroll through any of my accounts, you will find once I find a good sound, I use the hell out of it. And you can tell what a difference it makes because every single video with that sound does well once I find one that works. I have found more often than not these sounds that do well aren't just like a song released by the artist. It's something that's been manipulated by a TikTok user. It's something that's been sped up or slowed down. It's a mashup, it's a remix. So you really do need to like sift through a lot of videos, search through the hashtags, and find videos that are like yours that are performing well, and save them to favorites so you can keep using them. To be honest, finding good sounds to use is probably what takes me the most time when it comes to making these videos. Next, when to post. How often? So I say I have 7 accounts. I didn't start with 7 accounts. I started with my main 2 that have my name and then 2 burners, and I've like built up to having 7. So in the beginning, when I only had a few accounts, I was posting 3 or 4 times a day on each account. So I have tested different times of day. It doesn't matter. Don't sweat it. Don't worry about it. I typically will post first thing in the morning. It's one of the first things I do. I get a cup of coffee, go sit in my chair, post on each one of my accounts, and sometimes that's it. I'm done for the day. I've posted 1 on each one, and then sometimes later in the day, it occurs to me I should post a second one for the day, and I'll post a second one on some of the accounts. But most days these days, I will post 1 per account first thing in the morning. Ones that I post at night seem to do well too. I just kind of try to keep in mind who's my target audience and when are they likely to be on TikTok. And even then, it does matter when you first post it that you're getting engagement immediately, because that's what tells TikTok to keep pushing it. So you do need to post it at a time where people are gonna interact with it right away, people are gonna see it right away. So you don't wanna do it at like 3 in the morning, but the video will keep performing throughout the day. So I would just be mindful of like, when are people at work? And just like really know who is your target viewer. Are they in school right now, or are they at work right now? When is this person likely to be scrolling on TikTok, basically? As far as how often, like I said, I basically do 1 a day now. Per account, I have done 3 or 4 per day. I really just feel like videos perform better when you let them breathe. I feel like when you post a video and then you post another video and then you post another one, this first one, like maybe it would have gotten more views if you hadn't done that. I don't know. I have no like facts to back this up. That is just kind of the vibe that I've gotten through doing this so much. So that's kind of why I feel pretty good about posting 1 per account per day. Just give that video its full potential to do its thing. And in my experience as a whole, all of my videos do better now that I do that. Okay, now the final section, just any last pieces of advice and things that I've picked up. Feel free to ask me any questions that you might have in the comments as well. Number one, you have to remake the video every single time you post. What I mean by that is you can't just download the slides from a video that you've posted previously and just keep reusing those images that already have the text in them. You might be able to get away with it once or twice. If you keep doing it, it's gonna get flagged as being too similar as another video on its platform. It's gonna tank it. You're not gonna get any views. So you do have to go in and type the text on the images every single time. It gets tedious. If you try to post a video and it gets stuck at 0 views, ask yourself, have you posted too often in the day? Are you using images that already have the text on them that you've used in videos in the past? Or I've also run into this quite a bit if I'm posting from my drafts. I'll try to post something from my draft that gets stuck at 0 views. I come back 10 minutes later, still stuck. I'll delete it. I'll make a new video where I type it out and everything, and it's not from my drafts, and it will immediately start performing. So sometimes for me, TikTok doesn't like when I post from my drafts. It doesn't like when I reuse images. So unfortunately, making a ton of videos ahead of time and like saving them in your drafts, I still will do that sometimes. Sometimes TikTok just like doesn't like it. Just a warning. With that said, you can change it up. So I'm not saying you have to remake every single slide in a video every single time, but you need to remake most of them. So if you save slides from a video and you're making the same hook, same video, just, you know, remaking it, say it's 4 slides, retype, make new slides 1 through 3, and then you could reuse the image for 4. And that's enough new stuff that it'll still push your video. Does that make sense? The point is your videos cannot be too similar to something you've already posted, or TikTok isn't gonna push it. It just needs to be slightly different every time. Because like I said, I use the same hooks every single time, same exact text. Sometimes I'll change a word or two here and there, but use a different image. You can change the size of the image. So if it was like a square the first time, go over and change it so it's the full length and like zoomed in. Just change something small every single time so TikTok's not flagging your video as being too similar. On that note also, be cognizant of where you're putting text and that it's visible to the viewer. TikTok has all of the buttons on the right side, the follow, the like and comment and stuff. You don't want your text to get hidden over there. And then it'll have the caption at the bottom. You don't want your text to get hidden down there. You want to make it readable. I've also noticed, because I have 2 phones and I post from my regular phone and then my burner phone from a couple of my accounts, and one of them's like a regular size iPhone and one's the plus size, the TikToks that I post look different on these 2 phones that are different sizes. So I would just be aware that your video is going to look different to people with different phones. So my point is just try to keep the text kind of like in the middle and small enough that it's not going to get cut off anywhere. Same with the quotes and stuff that you're using, the highlighted things from your Kindle versions. That's why I say I go into Canva and I'll just make like a black background the size of a TikTok video, and then I'll take my screenshot and I'll just like make it smaller and put it in the middle to try and make it a little more readable. I think that was everything. Hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully this made sense. If you're someone who also does this, if you also post these kind of videos on TikTok, if you have any other advice, things that I missed, feel free to put your 2 cents down below in the comments for everybody. My memory card is filled up because I've been talking so long. I don't know where it cut me off. Any other tips I would recommend as far as the font that you use, just keep it to the like classic one. Don't use like any of the cursive and stuff like that. I just feel like that doesn't do well on TikTok. And I would keep being consistent, keep posting, even if it's not taking off right at the beginning. But also I would just like be self-aware enough to recognize, am I being persistent, just to like see, to give myself, you know, enough data to conduct this experiment and see if this is working, or am I just doing the same thing a million times even though it's not working? Be aware of when something's not working and be willing to change and pivot, whether that means these images aren't working, I'm not picking the right sounds, this hook isn't working. The best thing that you can do is follow other accounts that make content like this and study them. What is working for them? Why is it working for them? How can you put your own spin on it and emulate it for your books? Don't just keep doing the same thing if it's not working. Adapt, pivot. And I hope this helped. I hope this works for you. I went from having a book that like really wasn't selling that well to now that book makes me like $4,000 or $5,000 a month just from that one book, just from doing this. So you have potential to do even more than that, obviously, if you're like me and you have more books out and you can do this for all of your books. But even if you only have one book, like you could start making good money on it right now. And this is something that I wish I had known when I was starting publishing, when I had just a couple of books. It took me until like book 5 to figure out how to market and like really start making good money. So my hope with this video is basically, if you only have 1 or 2 books out, like I hope you get a better head start than I had and you figure this out earlier than I did. And I hope this is helpful. I will say I do cross post these videos to YouTube Shorts and to Instagram Reels. You can do that if you want to. If you already have this account set up, you might as well, you've already made the video. Nothing performs like TikTok. So if you can only pick one, do the TikTok. If you have a little extra time and you are trying to also grow those other places, which is good, it's good to diversify, you can post them there as well. But these work really, really well on TikTok and like decently well sometimes on the other places in my experience. I think that's gonna be it for today's video. All my links are down below in the description. Hope you guys are all doing well. Leave me a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. And I'll just see you guys in our next video very, very soon.